Did they beat you in school in the PRC when you were going? Like, did they like whack you with a stick or something? Was that
No.
still something that they did? No, they stopped doing that.
Um, I think that if you are aggressive enough, nobody dares to beat you.
So I would think you're implying that you were very aggressive in school then. No one messed with you.
Ve- Very aggressive. I mean, can be interpreted in different ways.
Didn't your dad own the school or something, or was it running it or something?
No,
Oh, that.
He worked there.
no, he.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, no wonder why you got away with everything.
Oh, yeah, that's
So
why.
you were unruly.
Yeah, this tracks now.
Now it sounds like a Korean drama.
Yeah, yeah,
The son of the head of discipline. So you're back from China, Jianggan. How was your China trip? 8th time this year. Wow, that's a crazy amount of time in China this year.
And I was saying that okay, next time, every time you come here, I feel obliged to catch with you, but you come here too often, and maybe maybe we should not catch up every time that you come here.
Wow. Okay. I see.
Eight. I mean, 8 times is pretty good. I don't see some of my friends in KL more than 8 times a year.
You, you don't see the friends in the same city. I mean, that frequently, unless like they interact with you at work, right, every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
like unless you're like really, really close. Usually, once a month is kind of where you cap out.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you think about a city like Shanghai, right? I mean, you see people. I mean, you travel from one place to another place is easily 2 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a
that's
big
true.
city.
That's true.
But it's kind of nice. I got a few days off when I was in Hangzhou, and went up to the mountains to see the temples. And this is where you see the. I can send you a few pictures.
Yeah.
You can
Post up.
you can post up, and you can see the maple leaves in all kind of colors, like a little bit of green, a lot of red, a lot of yellow. So and it's the pagodas and stuff. It's actually quite nice.
Oh,
Okay. Very nice. Very nice. So it's more of a relaxing trip. I thought you said you were there for business though.
No, I was there for a full week, but I
Okay.
decided to
Take a
spend with
break.
some. Yeah.
Okay. Very nice. Very nice.
So also spent I think properly a few days in Shanghai because otherwise throughout the year every time I go by Shanghai I just pass by the airport and then go to another city. Um, took a walk around some of the posh areas. I think I sent you the picture, right? I saw like somebody carrying a capybara.
Dude, yeah, they had a llama and a capybara. I forgot to post that. I need to post that on the LLB YouTube posts, but yeah, that was insane. There's
Yeah,
like
I was walking the street and somebody was riding a bicycle and in a basket there's a capybara.
the shakes of Shanghai.
Yeah, and instantly he was. I mean, he stopped. I think to buy something, and instantly, like his bicycle was surrounded by people because everyone was saying, like, "What the heck?"
did they try to eat it?
Your visa has been revoked from China, Dave.
They were like, 好吃吗？可以吃吗？什么味道？
这是
Uh,
什么猪？
什么猪？
I think I think people in sort of South America used to eat it because I think in Catholicism there's this fasting period where they somehow classified capybara as something which is not in the list of things that you can't eat during that period. So historically, it was actually big meat source.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
in
it
South
was.
America, they
Yeah, it
did.
makes sense.
It was farmed
Mhm.
for
But
meat in South America, 100%.
but you know why capybara is culturally so popular in China now, especially among young people?
Something to do with Xiaohangshu.
No, it's nothing to do with his attitude. It doesn't care about anything. It's completely thumping. It's like I mean, you step on it, if you sit on it, if you sort of
Oh yeah,
ride,
there's no natural predators for it, so it's very docile. So
it doesn't care. It doesn't care. I mean, people show the
Right.
images of like different animals like sitting on top of capybara, and they're just okay, whatever.
Oh, right.
this is track of like the laying down culture, and it's represented
Yeah.
of the zeitgeist of China right now.
It's
Yeah,
like the
so
anthropomorphization of the like yeah, the laying
Chinese
class.
youth.
you don't care about anything, and that's kind of laid back attitude because I was speaking with a few relatives who are working in Shanghai, and they complained. I mean, they didn't really complain. They were saying that the amount of stress this year actually increased compared to previous years. So, so, so one of my cousins was telling me that people. I mean, you read the news. People are trying to find understanding why people don't consume, why young people don't consume. They,
Mm.
they should just stop taking all the theories. Just go and talk to a few young people. They will know.
Did you do that? Did you talk to any young people?
I talked to a few people, and the key thing is that you have you have a couple of worries, right? I mean, first is that in basically all the sectors is layoffs,
No.
and people have uncertainty about the future, saying that I don't know when will be my turn, because I assume people in my team been let off. That's not only tech, right? That's finance. That's some of the brands, etc. So across different sectors, so people are worried, and of course at the same time, you have mortgage to pay.
Oh, they have mortgages, yeah.
You have mortgage to pay, and your house price doesn't seem to hold. So obviously, when you are in that kind of situation, you don't have the desire to get married. You don't have the desire to consume.
And how are the interest rates in China holding up? Are they going to come down then, or what's it looking like?
It's already gone down quite a bit, right?
We've lowered them.
So I think just was that yesterday there was another like government economic conference which they announced a set of I wouldn't say policies, but a set of directives, right? So, every economist from every bank is trying to interpret what exactly, how they use this term differently from the previous time, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But overall, I think people have a sense that it's not enough.
Okay.
That's
And
like
so,
that's why you see every time. This year it's been like a few times. Every year, every
yeah,
time there's a government conference, the expectation goes up, stock market goes up.
yeah.
Then the conference directives released, the stock market goes down.
Well, who was the most interesting person you talked to in the Shanghai trip?
Oh, I spoke with lots of people. Let me see. I didn't really speak with Capybara or the Llama, so we spoke with a few large e-commerce companies, and there was one person who started a logistic company, parcel delivery, back in 1997,
Wow.
and we're asking him how he sees the dynamics in China versus the dynamics in Southeast Asia in terms of e-commerce sort of delivery. And he said in Southeast Asia would be difficult because the difference in China is that the sequence. You have the high speed. You have motorways first, then you have the delivery companies, then you have e-commerce. In Southeast Asia, most part of it, you don't have the motorway. You have the investors putting money into e-commerce, and e-commerce companies trying to push the delivery companies. So then we're asking him that what do you mean by that? He said because of the sequence, the negotiation power of the parcel delivery companies in the whole ecosystem is very different. Like in China, e-commerce form a large volume, but they don't depend on this volume, and the platforms allow merchants to select which logistic company they want to use. In Southeast Asia, you look at Shopee. Doesn't allow you to. Where's June?
Mm.
June is selling, right? So Shopee doesn't allow you to choose which parcel delivery partner to use. I think TikTok Shop is the same. So the platform allocates for you. So the dynamics is very different.
Yeah.
And I find this interesting because over the last 2 years, there's lots of analysis, from different consultants about the landscape, and nobody tries to interpret that this way.
I think we've talked about it before, though, right? It's the infrastructure in general has always been lagging in Southeast Asia, and that's a big part of the advantage for a big market like China. So,
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about that in terms of having the right expectation of timeline of when do you expect what, and but I don't think we talked about that in the sense of okay, if you are doing a certain business in the whole ecosystem, how do you stand? How much negotiation power you have versus your upstream or downstream.
yeah, when e-commerce was started in the region, I remember we had to build a lot of the things from scratch in terms of last mile delivery. And then, of course, only maybe a decade on later, the big logistics companies started coming in, and then more. But yeah, it's still the constraints are the physical infrastructure, which won't change. Which is why motorbike is still very popular.
Yeah,
So
I think when you started Zalora in 2012, there was no logistics, right? There was only the
in
post.
Vietnam, there was nothing. We yeah, it's just building everything from scratch. Yeah, it was just a regular post system everywhere. So
Yeah.
um,
In China, the issue is that the most of the large parcel delivery companies, with the exception of JNT, started in 1997, and Taobao only started in like 2001, 2002. You see that time gap?
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Mm.
But I don't see it changing for Southeast Asia, right? We're stuck with what we're stuck, unless the governments just massively improve infrastructure.
The
And
governments.
yeah, governments across every country, which is just like What are you pondering, Dave? I see a lot of smoke coming out of your ears. Why don't you think aloud?
He looks like a high school pupil in China, like, trying
It's a
to learn.
haircut. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, wait. So what's the sequence here? You're saying that the. I'm just trying to think here.
The infrastructure, the players provide infrastructure over the hard infrastructure, then commerce.
Well, no, that makes sense, right?
Mm,
Because if you think about it, a lot of these businesses require a certain level of investment or certain checkboxes that have to
mm.
exist before they can function. I think the analogy that I always make about this is like Uber. Uber was not possible as a business until
Before mobile.
smartphones,
Yeah.
until mobile phones, until no, specifically the iPhone and geolocation.
Yeah.
There was a couple of different things that had to exist, right? You had to have like always internet connected phone. You need to have geolocation on your phone, and you had to have payments on your phone, right? Before Uber as a business was even
Mm,
possible.
mm.
But I guess
But
my question here is
What is that?
your point is like these logistics companies didn't exist at all in Southeast Asia, right? Because if you think about the same heuristic, so what do you need for e-commerce? You need to have like roads. Of course, you need to
Yes.
have actual like the
Yeah.
base layer is like physical roads to connect
yeah,
all the towns, and then you need to have. I guess you're saying the logistics companies just didn't exist when e-commerce started. Is that what your
no,
contention is?
I don't think there was parcel delivery companies at large scale when e-commerce came about.
I mean, you guys were doing this before I was. So you tell me. Like when I started really doing it in like 2016,
Mm. What do you
we had decent infrastructure already, right? So like, what's your
have in which country?
Malaysia? Well,
Mm.
Yeah.
regionally, right?
It.
Okay.
Malaysia,
Yeah.
Thailand, Singapore,
Yeah.
Philippines,
I
Indonesia.
think for simple last mile delivery, yes. But even at the time when I was looking at doing a pets business for
Yeah.
bulky items, still
Yeah.
was not very possible. It was still cost prohibitive, and so like it just that idea wouldn't really fly off either. It took another 5+ years before I think most categories can be accommodated now. So we're talking about across a decade. It really kind of is matured relative to the constraints, I guess. Like it's kind of like where it is at.
I
We
mean,
kind of
I was speaking with someone senior at China, and he was saying that now in terms of capacity or capabilities, they can deliver to I think 90% of the population in China within 24 hours. Um, but realistically, when you put the cost into the equation, and most of the cases you will choose 48 or 72 hours delivery because I mean if you are say in Southeast Asia case, if you're living somewhere in Eastern Malaysia, you want something to be delivered fast. That means that I mean the merchants need to store the goods um, fairly close to you, or they need to use some kind of like express kind of service, like I mean flying plane or something, which will cost more. So it is always possible, but it's just a matter of cost.
Well, I think the unlock was the strong focus of marketplace. Around the time Dave was doing Althea, I think like Zalora and Lazada, they switched over to marketplace model, and all the smaller suppliers probably tend to use like just regular post, right? I mean, of course, part of it's still going through centralized hubs or warehoused a little bit, but like the big growth, right, isn't purely like probably from marketplace and decentralizing and people just sending direct. So
I think
it's a bit different, maybe.
I think Post worked, but Post just didn't work at the scale and the service level that would allow
Yeah,
e-commerce.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, like, I still think by and large, it's for a lot of the small stuff that I buy off like a Shopee or a Lazada, it still takes within like 3 to 5 days, and it's sometimes it is using regular post,
Mm.
but that's like for I
Uh,
guess smaller items.
I think in Singapore now, if you buy things off Shopee, it's I mean, at least the stuff that we buy for our household, large majority would be next day delivery
Oh wow,
Yeah, but
because
That's Singapore.
yeah,
That
small
doesn't.
market,
maybe,
right?
You can't use Singapore as a proxy, right? That
oh,
doesn't.
I don't think it's because it's small market. I think it's because of the density. That I mean, if you
That's what
put
I meant.
warehouse,
Geographically small. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
dense.
I mean,
Yeah,
you go to a village in Eastern Malaysia. It's also geographically small, right? But
Well, they solved that through using like third party providers that act as like a post office, right? So you could drop it off at these locations that are close to you, but it still takes another like once you drop it off there, it's another day to get to a centralized hub, right? So I
I
mean,
mean, unless you store all the goods in every single village, which is of course economically not feasible.
yeah, yeah.
Why are we talking about this?
You brought it up.
Yeah, you brought it up as one of the interesting talks you talked about, and you were comparing China to Southeast Asia, so which I think you do
I
a lot
mean,
these days.
the real question you have to ask, I think, in this scenario is how much are these companies spending, respectively, on capex, right? Like, how much did the big Chinese e-commerce players spend on capex in their, I don't know, first 10 years, and how much is like Zalora, Lazada spending on capex in terms of building out logistics infrastructure?
Yeah.
But that's
And
I don't think that's the root of the issue, right? I mean, the capex. I mean, of course, the scale is different. I mean, China sends like 150 billion pesos a day. Southeast Asia is like I think 15.4 billion or something. It's like a 1/10 of that, which I think is already quite sizable. The question is that we look at capex spend. I mean, how much ROI does that bring you, right?
no, but that's the thing. You can't measure. A lot of capex isn't measured that way, right?
Uh-huh.
Like if you think
Uh-huh.
about it, Amazon spent tens of billions, hundreds of billions on capex
Hmm.
over the course of like 2 decades, building out their logistics infrastructure and
Yeah.
warehousing, right?
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
use an ROI calculation on that, of course it's going to look terrible because it's hugely negative for the first 20 years. And then, of course, once you get to a certain point, certain scale, and you dominate, then it looks very profitable and very clever. But my question here is like, because essentially what you're saying is, there is this lag time between what exists, how much infrastructure already exists, and how much these companies need to build to operate their business at an efficient or a serviceable rate, right? That's kind of like what you're getting at. And I
Mm.
think every e-commerce company has this. Even Amazon had the same issue, right? Of course, they had the advantage of tapping into the U.S. postal infrastructure, but at a certain point, they also kind of came to the same conclusion that goes, hey,
Mm.
to compete and to grow our business, we need to go and spend our own money to build
Mhm.
warehouses, to build distribution, to build fleets. Um,
That's because they're big enough, right? I mean, when you are not big, I mean, it doesn't make sense for you to build your own infrastructure. The ROI will not make sense.
No, but the Southeast Asian companies are big. I
Mm.
mean, I don't
Yeah.
think anyone has ever argued that like Shopee is not a big company,
Shopee spends
right?
a lot of money in infrastructure, a lot.
Yeah, but that's my question. Is like, what do they spend it on? Like infrastructure as a line item
That's a good
can
question.
can be
Yeah.
like defined as
Like
a lot of
what?
things. Is that servers, right? You could be spending on servers. You could spending it on like warehouses. Like, what is actually?
Yeah.
I don't.
Warehouses, sorting centers, vans, and trucks.
So what's their? How much are they spending a year on infrastructure?
I don't know the exact amount, but I think you can easily find from their what do you call that, P&L.
ChatGPT. We can ask ChatGPT.
But
Yeah.
that's the numbers, yeah.
But I mean, also, I know that even though if they spend on that specific warehouse infrastructure or last mile infrastructure, the whole ecosystem, people they also have to rent out from other people. They just can't do all of it. So I know like people who specifically just buy up land for warehousing for e-commerce providers. I mean, actually, June would be perfect for this because his uncle is he owns GDEX, right? And I think that's quite a big regional player in this kind of space. So
It's still alive.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they do traditional. I mean, they have a very strong core business. They don't just rely on e-commerce, right? So
No, you can't rely on e-commerce. If you
yeah,
rely on e-commerce, unless you're
yeah,
the top, otherwise you will not have margins.
yeah. But I mean, like all those guys in the early days, like the 2010s onwards, a lot of those small guys, they kind of just died off, I think, or they just got eaten up by other bigger logistics players. It used to be a kind of a big thing to invest in. I remember, a lot of those
In,
small,
in
like
logistics,
yeah, like smaller logistics players trying to do last mile or something like this, or trying to be like a provider.
just I mean, for e-commerce, just doesn't make sense. I mean, if you do B2B logistics, you can. I mean, each customer is different. Each solution needs to be customized, and it's not like a pure competition on scale and efficiency.
Yeah.
But if you go to e-commerce, I mean, you basically compete on the same service level with larger guys. I was speaking with one logistics provider that said, okay, look at GNT. They are, I mean, not more sophisticated than us, but there's one thing they do which is better than us. They have the scale, right? They have 10 times of our parcel volume in that particular country. So which means that they can afford to send their courier man to deliver 3 times a day. Well, I can only afford to send the person once a day. And of course, when you deliver 3 times a day, your service level becomes very different. Even though your packages break, I mean, sometimes you have issues, sometimes you can't find your package, but overall, the service level is much better.
Yeah, but I think the behavior has gone to the point where the service level doesn't matter that much. Like, I just like mindlessly buy stuff and I just wait for it to come, whether it takes a few days or a week. Like I don't care that much, right?
I mean, but if there are two providers, one gives you like next day, the other one gives you like in 3 days. Over time, I think you will gravitate towards the first guy if the cost is the same.
Yeah, I don't know if the ROI like is good enough in Southeast Asia for like to care that much. I guess I don't know. I think that'd be the question.
I think I think back to Dave's point, right? I mean, a lot of this capital investment for the first few years, even for the first decade, probably doesn't make sense. But eventually, they might or might not pay off. So the question is that whether they will pay off and whether people will believe that it will
Well, it's
pay
a
off.
little bit different in China and America, right? You could pick a very centralized geographic location that can serve the whole country. I don't think you can really do that well in Southeast Asia. I guess maybe you could. No, but there's like what tax implications and regulations, import export, right? I don't think you can.
I think in terms of geography, the US is more fucked up than Southeast Asia. I mean,
U.S.
yeah, try to send something from Los Angeles to New York. I mean, it's just how much distance and how much, I mean,
It's
empty
very
land.
efficient though. Like I mean, it's the same regulations. I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess there's always a question of like e-commerce tax. That was always a question, but like it's like largely flew under the radar for so long. I don't know. I think it's very efficient. Like it's been solved kind of before for other logistics in a big way. And I guess that's ties to your point about China, right? It's like the infrastructure is there first, and then
Yeah,
you build on top of that, right? So it's just
yep. Did I tell you I mean, earlier this year I was speaking with a historian based in Beijing and professor of history, and his theory after doing lots of research on the ground is that all this like outsourcing manufacturing needs that came to China in about 2001 to 2003, and China could actually take them in is because the government changed their tax scheme, and the local governments built lots of industrial parks which were empty, and they were just there when all this demand came.
oh yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, I think you
Yeah,
mentioned
yeah.
that before.
So it's not really the local governments are farsighted, but because I mean, so for whatever reason they built that, and when the demand comes, and they could easily accommodate a lot of factories. Like now, if you send people to certain countries in Southeast Asia, I mean, if you said, okay, I want to move manufacturing there, are there enough industrial parks with good infrastructure, with good supporting logistics?
Come on, Dave. I know you want to say something.
No, I'm just thinking. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's like a, I don't know. Is that true? This seems like to be a pretty easily um, fact-checked question, right? You just look at how many industrial parks were built, and then
Mhm.
whether or not like what their occupancy was over like a 5 year period of time from '01 to '03, right? If they were like
Yeah.
completely vacant in like 2000 or 1999, and all of a sudden the tax reforms or whatever the land reforms happened, and
But
then they
land
all
reforms
filled
happened
in.
before that. That land reforms happened before that.
No,
So
no, no. I'm saying
mm,
like reforms as a general,
yeah.
like
Mm,
whatever new policy was implemented, right?
mm.
It seems like a pretty easily fact-checked contention that he's making, right? I just don't know.
Well, I don't think there's any contention. I'm just making a point.
Okay, good talk.
Okay. Let's close off the China talk then. What do you think about China then going forward, or like what are you excited about for next year
I'm excited about Trump.
for
Oh,
China?
why? Yeah, I'm curious.
No,
What?
I mean, I know so many like people who have been thinking about, I mean, how to diversify their business, how to move their business out, how to expand internationally.
Chuhai.
And
You mean for
uh,
Chinese companies?
yeah, for some of them, I mean, I think most of them will probably not be very competitive, but there are some of them who are really good. And I think the situation in the last 4 years have been good for some people and very bad for lots of people. Good for some people who are doing like I don't know, for whatever reason, the cross-border e-commerce part was going really, really well for lots of people.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think that Dev can easily fact check this, right? I mean, the amount of imports that US does from China for the last few years.
Well, I mean, just look at the volume that Shein and Temu does, right? That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
indicative.
Yeah.
It's true.
yeah, 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 yeah. But when, I mean, whether that party will be shocked, we don't know. But if that party gets shocked, and people are going to find ways to adapt, and that's why you see things become really interesting.
But why
Like
are you
this,
excited? Well, I mean, that
Yeah,
doesn't.
what are you excited about? Yeah,
I'm still not clear why you're
it sounds
excited
pretty
about this.
bearish for well, yeah. Is that bullish for China, or you're bullish for your business, or like what do you mean?
no, I just feel exciting.
Oh,
Uh,
you're excited about the change that because of Trump as an impetus.
there will be changes, and there might be changes, there might be volatility, and which means that there will be opportunities which will be unleashed,
I see.
and that becomes interesting, because otherwise it's stifling, right? I mean, if things go predictably towards a certain direction, and there's nothing you can do to change it, and that is the question actually was raised in every single discussion when I was in Shanghai and Hangzhou. Like, what do you think about? I mean, what's going to happen in Trump? And consistent reply that people give is that I don't know. Like,
Well, how are they planning business then? Like, what are they looking forward to? Or they're just like what, more conservative and
I think to cite the same gentleman I mentioned just now, he said, I mean, why do you guys have to plan business on a yearly basis? We'll never plan a business for a yearly basis. We'll plan every month.
interesting.
I
And
mean,
and
it depends on the business, right? I mean, certain businesses you have to plan on a longer cycle, right? Like no one's going to build a, semiconductor fab
Month by
in a
month.
month, right? That really depends on the kind of business we're talking about. Like I think it's not so clear cut, but you can't make a simple judgment like that.
yeah, but I'm not in semiconductor. That's not my business. I'm not in like chemicals. That's not my business. I'm not in government. That's not my business. I look at tech. I look at e-commerce. I look at retail.
No, but tech is the same, right? Like if you think about the product development life cycle for like a real product, not like incremental changes or like a new product, it's not a monthly thing.
It's in the years of planning. Actually,
Yeah, it's in the years, right?
Yeah.
I
Or even
mean,
like if you want to expand retail outlets too, it's not like
Yeah, same with
next month I'm
retail.
going to open up 100. No, you have to think about that a little
Well,
bit.
that actually
no,
that's actually possible. Opening like 100 retail is actually possible. That's different.
Well, it still requires some amount of planning. It's not like I
no,
just
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Retail, it doesn't require that much for planning.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It doesn't. I can open like 1,000 stores every month for the last quarter of 2022 and the first quarter of 2023.
I mean,
So,
I guess if it's in like a predictable space where there was like an old competitor before, maybe yeah. I mean, I guess depends. Yeah, like Dave
the thing
says,
is,
depends.
if you are in a market where competition changes very, very frequently, and it's very hard for you to actually plan for the long term, you have to adapt.
But so back to your point. So they're excited for Donald Trump because it's going to
No,
introduce
no, no,
more
not
uncertainty.
excited.
Like
I
what?
said I'm excited. I mean, I'm an
You're
observer.
excited. You're
I'm
excited.
Okay, you're excited. Okay.
no.
Oh, you're
I mean,
excited. Okay, okay, okay.
if you are a
Yeah, because you're
participant,
you're like a takesman, right? Like your business is predicated on like doing
Ah, no
takes and
wonder.
like
Yeah, there's a lot of
giving
opportunity
opinions.
for you to make a
Yeah,
lot of
of
takes.
course.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone that works in like the media services. Yeah, this makes a lot of
It's like
sense. Yeah, I can
volatility.
see
It's
it.
like volatility trading. Ah, great. More
I mean,
content.
Yeah, it's
like
more opportunity to
right?
talk about things. Yeah. Okay.
By the way, I'm not
Now
media.
I get it.
Ah,
I've
you
been
absolutely are media.
I've been
You're
FSR since like two
no no
years.
You
no
are absolutely in the media business, my friend.
I'm not media.
no. You're in the media
Alice is
business.
This is
media.
like the Peter Thiel's secret, trying to hide your monopoly. Nice try, Jianggan.
No, you sell opinions. You sell opinions. I mean,
I don't sell.
analysis, whatever, right? Like let's.
No, I don't
You,
sell.
Soft sell.
you're a takesman. Okay, I get it. You're saying you personally excited. Okay,
Okay,
now I
got it.
understand.
Got it. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
But how do you guys think about this topic, Trump and all this like upheaval or volatility that people expect?
In what context? I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways to look at it, right?
Whichever context you feel appropriate.
Well, I'm actually generally quite optimistic about the incoming administration.
Mm.
I mean, I think we can make it. Yeah, I think we should narrow it down because I think there's a lot of different ways you could talk about this. But I think from my business, I think it's generally good, right? Like we're talking about someone. I mean, I think when you were talking about this, you have to look at like short term, midterm, and long term implications, right? But this whole deregulatory regime, I think, is very positive for people like us. Of course, if he actually does follow through on some of his policies, I think that's going to be generally quite bad for the American people. But
It's
you
you
know,
against the American people.
it's a capitalist versus everyone else. It's like the United Healthcare guy.
Oh yeah. Speaking of which,
No, it's true. It's true. Like
yeah,
if you look at it on like just take what he says, right? And we'll just because that's the only thing we have to go off of. Like his stated policy preferences, which is mass deportation,
Trump.
tariffs, right? These are all incredibly, if he actually follows through,
Oh yeah, it's true. Yeah,
incredibly inflationary
that's
policies.
true. That is true. Yeah.
So for your average consumer, it's going to be bad. If you think housing costs are expensive now, wait till all the cheap labor that are used to build these houses get deported, right? It's going to be even higher. If you think about tariffs, right? I mean, we can make about a lot of arguments about American manufacturing, but most of the things that an average person consumes are manufactured outside of the U.S., right? We're not talking about like high-tech manufacturing, like semiconductors. We're talking about like TVs and cars for the most part. Most of those aren't made in, well, maybe not cars, but like definitely like electronics, consumer electronics, apparel, textiles. Most of that stuff is manufactured outside of the U.S. So if these things actually come into play, hugely inflationary, right? But then if you're someone that owns capital assets, right? If you own stock, if you own equities in companies, all of those, the earnings are going to go up. And so typically, it's optimistic for you. So it's just more class warfare.
Uh, this tariff narrative, what do you think is really, what do you think he's really thinking? And I don't think he doesn't know that this is, I mean, causing inflation and stuff.
No, but we talked about this before, right? I think it's mostly a negotiation tactic. He talks about this in The Art of the Deal. If you ever read The Art of the Deal or read excerpts, there's
Hmm.
this concept in negotiation called anchoring, right?
Hmm.
Where like you're the first person that tosses out a number or a position, and then that will reframe the entire conversation to whatever it is you tossed out there, right? And so this, I think, is a
It's a
negotiation
negotiation
tactic.
tactic.
It's a negotiation tactic where you say like I'm going to implement whatever 100% tariffs if you don't do A, B, C, D, and then from there you negotiate. Right? I don't think he's actually going to implement, you know, quite to the level that he's saying he will.
So you are optimistic in a way that I mean, the bad things are not going to happen, or the bad things that he threatens that will happen will actually happen.
So I mean, yeah, this is okay. I think it's a good point. I think the heuristic should be like what he says and how much of what he says will actually be executed, right?
Hmm.
So like
Hmm.
let's take mass deportation, right? He says he's going to deport all the illegals. I think we can all agree it's impossible to deport 10 million people. It's not going to happen, right? You can probably get
Why,
away.
why do you think it's not going to happen? It's just a matter of cost, right? I mean, how much cost do you want to bear by doing that? I mean,
Because
it
you
is
need, I mean, because
it
you
is
don't have the
technically
infrastructure to
feasible.
deport 10 million people,
Then build
right?
that.
Sorry.
Then build that. I mean, I don't think it's entirely impossible, right? It's
No, but look. You're a politician, right? It's like you come in, and Doge is actually a great example of this, right? Like Elon Musk and Vivek, they've made public statements, or they wrote like a op-ed in the Times or something, where they basically said very straightforwardly, like we have basically 2 years to do whatever it is to accomplish whatever we can with
before
Doge
midterms,
because
right?
before midterms, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone understands this.
Mm.
It's the same. You have trade-offs. Like it's like running a business or in your personal life. There's always going to be trade-offs. If you do one decision that precludes certain other decisions or certain other paths, right? And it's not. I mean, the U.S. government is big, but it doesn't have unlimited resources. So
Hmm.
you have to look at all of these different possibilities and options, and you're like, what are the trade-offs here? Yeah, if this is the only thing you do, you can probably try and deport 10 million people. But you think about the investment that would require, then there's things you can't do, right? If you want to
Yeah.
pass, like, I don't know,
Zero
let's
sum almost.
say regulatory reform or semiconductor investment, or just take your pick, right? Any one of these things, you can't do these things, right?
So basically, but basically, when you say that you can't do it, doesn't mean that it's not sort of technically impossible. But you trust that whoever who's making the decision will come to the rational conclusion that I mean, doing that will be net bad for them as a politician.
I don't know if
No,
it's
because it's
logical.
it's
It'll be
it's
yeah.
marginal returns. It's all
Mm.
about marginal. It's a question of
Mm.
marginal, like maximizing ROI and marginal returns,
Yeah.
right? So yes, could you deport every single legal immigrant in the United States? Probably not. First of all, that's probably not possible because we don't have. No one has the
Perfect
location of
information. Yeah.
the information. That's not possible,
Yeah.
right? But you can probably deport
A lot.
20-30% of them, right? And this actually goes back to the logistics question, right? It's like, as a logistics provider, you can probably service 90 to 95% of your customer base with,
Hmm.
let's say, 100 million in infrastructure investments, right? But then those marginal 5 to 10%, it's going to require exponentially more because you have to build like a warehouse in bumblefuck nowhere, right?
Mm.
And is it worth it from your perspective as an investor or a capital allocator to deploy an incremental 100 million to
Mm.
service 5 to 10% of the population? Probably not if you're looking at it from a strictly ROI perspective, right? And the same
Mm.
with this is you can probably achieve 80% of the desired results, at least politically, you can achieve 80% of the desired results by doing like 10 to 20% of what you actually promised, right? And then is it worth it for you politically to then execute the other 80% when you already have 80% of the benefit to you? That's my
Mm.
point, right? And I don't think everyone here is a rational actor,
Yeah, yep,
right?
yep.
So they're not going. You just do a simple cost benefit analysis of this, and they're like, okay, I've deported like let's say 1 million, and that's probably it, and I'm not going to bother trying to find the other 19 million. And same with the tariffs, right? Like I've negotiated tariffs for I don't know, let's say Chinese cars. This is a great example of this, right? And then I have my political talking point. I can say, look what I've done for the American people. I made all these jobs in the auto manufacturing district, and then I reap the benefits. And then do I really want to then negotiate about I don't know, like AirPods, but probably not.
So in that regard, I mean, we think about the sort of the rational calculation of the incoming administration. How do you think about the current administration?
There's nothing that they're out, right? What does it matter?
Are they entirely rational as well, or they're rational in a different way?
I think they're rational in their own different way, right?
Mm.
It's their own framework
Mm.
and heuristics. It's like Joe Biden pardoning his entire family before he leaves. Like he said he would never do it, but now
Mm.
that he's lost the election, he's like 82 years old. He's never going to
Yeah,
run
there's
for
nothing to
office
lose.
again. There's no cost for him to pardon his son. So he goes, yeah, of course I'm going to pardon my
It's
son.
just some reputational damage, and probably at this stage he doesn't care anymore.
No, he doesn't care anymore. He's going
Yeah.
to be dead in like 6
Yeah,
years, right?
yeah.
Like, why does he
Mm.
care? Because of
Mm.
course he pardons his family. Like
Mm.
like the calculus is very straightforward. But I mean, I think to back to your point, right? I think I'm generally optimistic because I do think the incoming administration is more pro business,
Mm.
right? It's more pro business, it's pro growth. I think overall their policies are going to be better for the long term. Then this is a very key point, is the long-term health
Mhm.
of the US, right?
Mhm.
I think, of course, short to midterm, there are going to be a lot of things that happen. And,
Mm.
if let's say they do hypothetically get rid of the Department of Education, just as a
Mm.
talking point,
Mm.
there's going to be a lot of unforeseen consequences. People are going to fall through the cracks, and it's going to be difficult for, I think, people on the margins. But
Mm.
then again, I think that's also what government is for. Government is there to make laws for the majority of the population, and then you have to kind of pick up the margins along the way,
Of
right?
course, correct. Yeah.
So, yeah, you course
Mm.
correct. You course
Yeah.
correct along the way. You can't make
Well,
laws for the minority of the population. You have to
I think
offer protections for them, but
yeah. So
typically your policy prescriptions have to be for the vast majority of your constituency.
hmm. I think back to the point about back to the point we talked about. I mean, of course, logistics covers 95% of the population. There's 5% which is economically not feasible to cover that. But
Yeah,
this is when the government steps in, saying that hey, your
correct.
business,
yeah.
you are making money from this 95%,
Yeah, correct.
and it's hugely profitable. And from a societal point of view, and it makes perfect sense for you to serve the remaining 5%, even though
Yep.
this percentage doesn't make sense. But overall, I mean, it's good for society, and it hardly has any dent on your P&L.
Yeah, correct.
Mm.
Well, I mean, this is the classic case of like why the government needs to exist and why it needs to
Yeah,
provide certain services, right? Because if you left up with a private enterprise, they would never do it because from
Yeah.
a profitability perspective,
mm.
it's not justified. And then that's where the government has to say, okay, I will build like a post office in rural Nebraska or something to make sure everyone gets mail.
Mm.
So it's a question of degrees then of how much socialism you want to accept, right?
Yeah, I'm not one of these people who's like privatize everything, right?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you
You
need
need
to
some
have,
public goods,
yeah, there's certain things that you need to have public goods for
like
just
healthcare.
because. Yeah, no, I'm for universal healthcare.
Yeah.
No, I really
I,
am.
I think
I
I
think
it feels like the case with the United Health CEO is really aligning left and right on this issue, right?
no, but see, this is what I've been saying for the last couple of years. The real divide in America is not left and right; it's a
Yeah, it's
class.
class. It's
It's a
class.
class.
Yeah,
It's a class
yeah,
issue, right?
yeah.
And I think this is really interesting because you look at the media coverage and sort of like the coverage of the reactions to what's happened. It's a great Rorschach test of which side of the class issue you are on, right? Because
Interesting. That's a good point.
everyone that says, "Oh, I can't believe he killed him. It's so terrible." I mean, of
Oh,
course it's terrible,
interesting.
right? But
Yeah,
this is like We know which side of the class issue
Yeah,
you're on,
yeah,
and
yeah,
everyone
yeah,
that
yeah,
goes
yeah,
that
yeah.
goes, yeah, of course he shot him. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Like what did you expect? It's like it's
So wait,
very
is Jianggan as an outsider? Where do you fall on this spectrum? Where do you fall on this Rorschach test?
I didn't care, to be honest.
yeah. Why would you care if you're
Yeah.
not an
Yes,
American?
why would I care?
He's above. He's above it all.
No. I mean, I don't know enough to care,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you won't be
No.
personally affected by it.
and I don't know enough. I don't know enough. I don't know what this guy was. I don't know what his business
But you
model
but
was.
you but you generally know how bad healthcare is in America, right?
Uh, in my first job, like 10 years ago, I was doing some study about, I mean, healthcare cost, and the U.S. was in a bad shape in a sense of, I can't remember what's the exact metric, but
All the metrics, like
Yeah,
literally
pick anything, throw a
all the
dart on the
metrics.
wall.
so basically the cost is highest. I can't remember by which metric, and the quality is among the lower end in industrialized countries.
No,
So
that's
there was
true.
clearly some
That's
problem,
100% true.
Yeah,
Yep,
it's like ranked 48 or something in the world of developed countries that have
it's 100%
worse
true.
healthcare. It's really bad.
We have the U.S. has the highest per capita spend on
hmm
healthcare, and in terms of like outcomes like
Yeah,
longevity, like or life
longevity, yeah, health.
expectancy,
Yeah,
like morbidity, obesity rates, et
yeah,
cetera, it's like among the worst of the industrialized countries. It's a
yeah.
disaster.
but I didn't get into details enough to know exactly what's causing this,
That's fascinating. Your media diet is very different, I guess. Like 'cause it was just my media was just all it's all people were obsessed about for like the past week. So
the past week.
past week plus, I guess, since
Yeah.
assassination. So Dave, where do you fall?
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because the guy that killed him is actually very wealthy. His
He's
This
family
sitting on
is
the wall.
diplomat Dave putting his hat on.
his family
He's
owns like
sitting on
a
the wall.
Yeah,
his family
he's very
owns like
wealthy. Yeah, very
a
wealthy.
1,000-acre estate in like
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
England. It's like that's
yeah.
like, so the narrative isn't as clean anymore because if he was like someone who's like from a working class background, it's easier to make like the class
Well,
argument.
the narrative also makes it seem like he rejected it because he like disappeared and he was rejected from the healthcare companies himself. So it seems like he was disconnected from his family in a sense, at least the narrative perspective. I don't know how true any of it is, but
No. Like my point on this is quite straightforward. Like I think it's just a manifestation of how frustrated people are with the
yeah,
institutions because the institutions aren't working for them, right?
yeah,
Like caveat. Of course, murder is never great, but you just look at like United Health's rejection rate of claims. It's like 30%,
yeah,
right? 30% of
yeah,
all
yeah. That's
claims get
insane. It's
which is
insane.
crazy. That's a
It's
crazy
insane.
number, right? And like, so it's completely understandable why people are upset and why they'd be like, yeah, good, he deserved it because,
Yeah,
you know,
'cause,
yeah, because I mean, healthcare, that's like the number one cause of bankruptcy in the U.S. is medical
mm,
bankruptcy.
yeah,
People literally lose their house and their livelihood over this, and like I don't think anyone should be surprised that.
yeah, yeah.
I
Correct.
honestly, what I'm surprised about is someone didn't try this earlier. Like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
surprised.
correct.
Like I
It's not
really am.
sooner, right?
I'm really surprised it didn't. Like it took until whatever 2024 for this to
Yeah,
actually happen, right? Like I mean, because healthcare in the U.S. has been a disaster for decades, right? Like
yeah,
we've been talking about it for like the last 30 years, ever since
yeah,
I've like been old enough to sort of understand politics a little bit and like what's happening. This has been like a constant debate and conversation, and that's actually yeah. If I'm being honest, I'm surprised that it took this long. I thought someone would have like tried to do this decades ago if we're being,
yeah.
Do, do you think things will change because of this?
So healthcare in the U.S. So this is really interesting. Oh, I can't remember who wrote this. I'll have to dig it up later. Maybe you can put it in the show notes, Alex. It's like
Yeah.
basically when things get as um, Byzantine and bureaucratic as this, the only shock to actually fix this is like some sort of like massive external conflict, which is basically war,
Yeah.
right? So this. So actually, if you trace the roots of this healthcare debate, it actually came from World War II. And I'm going to get my history a little bit mixed up here,
Mm,
but basically, what happened was in World War II, so much of the industrial capacity in the U.S. was commodity or was taken over by the war effort, and they put in price controls on a lot of things, right? And salary caps. That the only way a lot of companies could actually compete for workers was to offer them benefits. And this is sort of like the genesis of how healthcare in the U.S. became tied to your employment. Like this doesn't happen in every other country or industrialized nation, right? Healthcare is not tied to your job, but this is where it came from. So
I think
basically, um, because of this war effort and then like sort of the nationalization of industrial capacity and production and these controls, then this is how healthcare became tied to your job in the US. And I think the only way to like probably really change that is some sort of like other huge shock to the system, whether it's
I think
war, some sort of industrial collapse, or like another COVID. I mean, think about it. Even COVID, which was like this huge thing, didn't change any of this.
Yeah, we went back straight
We
back
went,
on
we went
track.
straight back to what it
Back on
was,
track.
right?
Yeah.
I
It's
think
so it's so entrenched that it's hard to imagine it changing.
I think this large external conflict narrative was mentioned. I mean, I heard it a few times. I think the most recently in that Lex Friedman podcast with that Indian guy. What's his name? Sagar NJT or something.
I don't know.
Oh, Sagar, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I heard that one too. It was a good one.
yeah. I think he mentioned about that. So basically, the thing is that I mean, this singular event of somebody make a large public stand is not enough to change things,
Yeah.
It's not,
change a
no,
deep-rooted
You need a
system.
revolution.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. I think it's true. Yeah, you need like a, and I think to a certain extent that's kind of like what the Donald Trump cabinet picks are. They're
Mm.
basically throwing like a
Yeah.
giant bomb into these like agencies, organizations to try and like change something. Whether or not that's going to be effective,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm doubtful. I'm actually really doubtful
Yeah.
because there's just like
We so
so much
deeply entrenched.
there's so
Yeah.
much like there's so much like incentive and so many people's like jobs and
Yeah.
livelihood that it's
Even
very
if you
difficult.
blow it up, someone will just take over the reins and just continue or do their own version of it, right?
Yeah.
They're just incentivized to do that. So, I mean, I guess looking at 2024, I could see why Jianggan's excited. There was just so much crazy shit that happened this year in terms of change, right? The Middle East, Gaza conflict, Syria's falling now.
I'm not excited about that.
Well, I mean, it's just change,
But
right? I mean, yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of crazy turmoil. It seems like how do you guys think of 2024? Like what? How do you characterize it? What I don't know, is the zeitgeist in your mind, and then what does that look like going to 2025?
I mean, in the US, the narrative is quite obvious. No,
Yeah,
it's basically class warfare.
it should be the same everywhere else. No, you think or no?
Politically, yes, right? I mean, that's if you look at it, every single election that's happened in the last year, 18 months, has been
Yeah,
the institutional candidates, the powers that be getting chucked out
yeah,
for the new people, right? So basically, everywhere, people around the world are kind of fed up by
yeah.
the status quo. I mean, that's
Well, not in Indonesia.
Southeast
yeah,
Asia is a bit special, huh?
not in, literally, Western democracies. Let me put it this way: Western democracies.
Jianggan, what about you? How would you characterize 2024, and then what do you think carries forward to 2025?
Oh,
Coming to the end of the year.
yeah. I just felt that this year went actually very fast, and I think for me personally was good because it just I mean there hasn't been any significant agony this year, significant challenges that I have to go through. So the year has been positive for us, and we got a new office with a nice view, etc. So that part is good. I think in the world it's I don't know. I sense a lot of anxiety amongst lots of people. So this year, and towards the end,
Especially young people, right?
probably. I don't have enough sample size to say that it's especially young people, but I do sense a lot of anxiety amongst the young people that I've talked to. I'm not sure whether that's more pronounced compared to people of earlier generations or not.
Mm.
No, I think that's true. If you think
Mm.
about it,
I
right,
don't know.
if you just think on like a fundamental level, the potential for global conflict is probably higher now than it's been since
Ever.
1970 ever.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, like if there's war, who goes to fight in wars? It's not you and me.
Yeah, I'm so
It's
old and useless at this point. Oh my god.
yeah. No one's going to draft. I mean, if things get really bad, maybe
If
we'll
you
get
think, yeah,
drafted.
we'll get there eventually, but
We'll get there
these-
eventually, right? But
yeah,
the people that go have to fight are going to be the young people, right?
yeah.
And this is not even touching sort of
Do,
like
do, do you
economic
think they actually think?
concerns.
I mean, do you think they're actually concerned about that aspect, or they are generally concerned about every single thing that's happening around them in life?
It's both. I know people in Germany. I had this conversation with a friend in
Europe
Germany,
makes sense
right?
to me. Europe makes
Yeah, Europe
sense.
makes a lot of sense. No, it's both.
Yeah,
So like
Because they see this, right? They see this.
it's literally in their backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, no, I had people. I've had conversations with people in Germany recently, right, who are late 20s, early 30s, and then they have to like they're like, oh, do I really want to live in Germany like the next couple of years? Because if there is conflict, there's a high chance that I will be sent or I will be drafted and sent to fight, you know, the Russians.
Yeah.
It's like
It's a real calculus.
for people who are close
Mm.
geographically, it's a real consideration.
What do you think, Alex, about life in 2024 and what's going to happen in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, I've been living under a rock, so a lot of this stuff kind of goes over my head. It feels so far away, especially being based in Southeast Asia.
Mm.
I guess it's a little bit different now because I guess I do have a new job opportunity that I'm probably taking on next year.
Mm.
So I do have to kind of come out of my rock a little bit. But even still, being in Southeast Asia, again, we're kind of insulated by a lot of this, right? To a certain degree. I think politically, at least, socially, economically, obviously, we'll be affected to some degree. But
I mean, just judging by the fact that in a few elections in this region, you don't really trust out the incumbent, right?
yeah, correct. I mean, the status quo, for Southeast Asia seems to be maintaining, right? I don't think there's any big upheavals or anything. I mean, it seems like a lot of things are changing with old regimes coming back and whatnot, but it's really just the same thing cycling over and over again, right? So, but I don't know. On a personal level, I'm just more excited. I think I've been making a lot more content consistently at the end of the year, getting more clarity of what the formats should be. Have new job opportunity next year, so on a personal level, I'm more excited. It's been a while, so it's just been wandering the desert for a while. So it's just nice to have some direction and some traction. Just chip away at it. So I don't know. I'm pretty excited for 2025. I'm sure Dave's excited too. A lot of new things on the horizon.
Nope. Nope.
No, at least I'm not excited.
Dave, you just hope there's no class warfare because Dave's going to be a big landlord in the U.S. So hopefully he has enough money to make a little army to protect himself.
No, it's fine. Our assets are not not the ones that people get mad about. It's the people who own like apartments, condos,
ranches
and houses.
estates.
No one thinks about what we own, so it's fine.
Yeah, you're with the people. You own warehouses with them.
Yeah, I'm a populist. If you don't
Sure.
believe when I say this, but I'm a populist.
Yes, the populace who eats caviar.
Yeah, but I want everyone to have caviar. I'm not like one of those woke people who go, oh, if I can't have caviar, no one should have caviar. I want everyone to have caviar. Yeah, which makes me a populist.
Okay. Everyone gets caviar. You get caviar.
Yeah, I want everyone to have caviar.
Okay.
So
what about you? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Jianggan.
What would you guys do more of next year? I mean, compared to this year?
I want to double down on content, but I don't know. I might be busy with the day job, so we'll see how that goes. I mean, I don't know if the project takes off or not, but still make more consistent content. Traction's growing with subscribers, so very happy with that. Little kernels of identity are growing on this format. So just keep doing what I've been doing for the past few years, but more consistently, I guess.
I've seen that you have a huge jump in consistency over the last few weeks.
That's true.
Yeah.
Good job.
Well, I removed some mental blockers and just started creating as more of an art, and that kind of helps me sustain longer, I think. And then I think once the seeds are planted, then it's easier to start refining and crafting, then being more purposeful. So
that's a very good point. I think a few of the products that we're doing this year, and we sort of, I mean, middle of the year, we had a thought, and the way we envisioned about this product, the way we thought this product should be done, the way we thought this product should be the audience this product should be targeting.
Can you tell us about this product?
No, what is this product you're talking about? Can you be more
Is it
specific?
secret? Is this a stealth
You're being
mode?
very vague.
I mean, you will see more products coming out of us like next year, but the thing is that sometimes it just takes a tweak, right? Okay, you think about things should be done this way for this audience with this particular format, but sometimes you say, okay, you have a sparks in, and no, it actually should not be done this way. I mean, it's still for the same audience, but the purpose should be different, right? So a lot of the things that we do, I think historically we put too much effort in every single thing that we do. So
I kind of agree. I think that's one of my realizations for 2024 is that, at least for my personality, that caring a lot less when it's so little and minuscule is just so much more freeing, and you could just start doing more.
Yeah, also think about the purpose, right? I mean, the purpose is not sometimes about, I mean, having something perfect.
Yeah.
But when that gets translated to each single undertaking you do, and sometimes there
Well,
are mistakes you need to make.
I think it's because we've done a lot of things in our career, and we kind of see how things can be. They can be big, and then it helps. It weighs you down. Like you think it should be a certain way, but
Yeah. By
yeah.
the way, end of the year, I have this out.
The updated. Oh, it's a new book, or
Same
oh,
book.
it's a revision.
Oh,
Nice.
you didn't
No,
update.
Oh, it's Chinese. The Chinese version.
it's translated into Chinese,
Yeah,
and
I didn't see all those Chinese characters on the cover.
yes.
Why?
You know what you have to do now? You have to translate it from the Chinese version back into English and see what happens. No, no, this is great. Do you guys ever watch news radio? So this it's
No.
this TV. It's like actually where Joe Rogan got his first break.
Mm,
He was a star, and it's
mm,
about this radio station
mm,
or news station,
Yeah.
whatever, right? And
mm,
one of my favorite episodes is like, so the guy who owns it is this businessman, and he writes this book called Capitalist Lion Tamer, right?
mm,
And then he translates it into Japanese, and then
mm.
he takes the Japanese version and translates it back into English, and it becomes super macho business donkey wrestler.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
so, so, which means that the context is a bit missing when you translate,
Yeah,
or people need to change it deliberately because it's. I mean, there are some cultural nuances that you can't translate it
Yeah.
exactly the
Correct.
way it is.
Correct.
probably a bit of
So,
both.
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so for this, we went through like 3 rounds of reviews. Um, I mean, you can call it censorship, whatever. So before the whole thing goes to the press, I mean
Yeah.
the the printing factory, and at the
Yeah.
printing factory they have the last round called a pre-print sort of final check. So which basically an old guy with magnifying glasses looking at a printout manuscript, and that guy managed to pick up nine problems,
Wow.
which I find fascinating. So one problem is that okay, we mentioned that, okay, this book was written when the it was originally written when the Russia-Ukrainian war just started, and that guy crossed that out, said that you can't call it a war; it has to be a conflict.
Special operation, you mean?
Yeah, that's funny. That's
Yeah,
funny.
and there's another part. I mean, it's so obscure, right? We said, okay, in the 17th century, during the middle of Qing Dynasty, that guy crossed out. No, 17th century is the beginning of Qing Dynasty, not the middle.
Oh wow. Very specific.
And we said some entrepreneurs got inspired by Mao Zedong's experience. Okay, not correct. It has to be the revolutionary experience led by Mao Zedong.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Interesting. That's very
Things like
interesting,
this.
actually.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting indeed.
So I don't know how. I mean, I don't know how this guy did it. Right? He was looking at, like, print out copy and look at things, and
He's
I
not
I
feeding it
don't
to an AI.
I don't think you would trust AI for this. This is your job at
Yeah.
stake.
Yeah. 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 That's
Because
true.
You know, on that point, can you
fair enough.
imagine that this is your job?
Yeah.
Like this
The
is
amount of
like this
content you have
guy.
to read every day.
No, 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 no. Just think about the implications of this. Like this guy's entire job is to make sure like every
Oh, true.
single like piece of media like is within the guidelines of the propaganda system. Like this is like there's a whole industry built
Yeah.
out just around like compliance to propaganda. That's crazy if you think about it.
I mean, this is just one book, right? I mean, if you look at
Yeah, that's my point. This is one book. Think of all the content
All
in
the
the media
content
that
being
exists.
created. Yeah.
People like this is like that's what I'm saying. It's an entire industry of people just dedicated to make sure like whatever is put out for consumption is within like the acceptable guidelines of what the party says. That's
I
crazy.
mean, in large Western tech companies, we call it trust and safety.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's called
Yeah.
trust. Yeah, free speech. Or no, it's called yeah, it's called trust and safety. Actually, that's true. That's but
Yeah.
I'm saying it's true. That's also
Yeah,
crazy that they do this in the U.S. too, right?
Yeah.
yeah, that's also a huge apparatus. Mm.
Yeah. It's massive. Okay, guys. Do we have any contrarian takes for the next year before we start to close out? Anything you think will play out that's not intuitive?
Intuitive,
Not intuitive.
not intuitive. 2 days ago, just a EV company in China went burst, and went
Oh.
bust. The chief operating officer is a friend, and I sort of saw what was happening, and I think next year this is probably going to accelerate. I mean, lots of investors will look at the sector saying that, okay, there's no way that the companies that we invest in will actually eventually make it.
Interesting.
I
So,
mean, that company sold like 2,400 cars in November, and BYD sold 500,000.
Yeah, it's nothing. 2,400 cars is like
So,
a
so,
yeah.
drop in the bucket.
so basically, unless you pump in massive amount of money to massively ramp up sales and production, otherwise you are going to lose more money based on the current production level.
Yeah, but this is just natural VC cycle, I guess, right? Or I mean, like,
It is so. I do think. I mean, lots of people talk about overcapacity. I think
okay,
as
you think it's going to play out?
no, I think as long as it's basically, I mean, business investors making business decisions. At the end of the day, I mean, I think the excess capacity will go because people will eventually traditionally calculate, say, hey, it doesn't make sense for us to continue to pump money into this anymore. So
So
we'll see.
we'll see more collapsing businesses and coming out of China next year.
I think we'll see some consolidation in that sector and probably a few other sectors, and
Yeah.
hopefully that will make life.
Yes. Speaking of which, the cars for BYD in Malaysia, they're so cheap for the amount of size you get. Very very tempting to really look at getting one.
I mean, I look around Singapore, I see more and more BYD cars. And
Yeah.
have you guys looked at this MPV called Denza, DNZA? It's
No, there's so many.
I think they started selling that in Singapore like 2 or 3 months ago, but I start to see them on the road because before this, the only proper option for you to buy a family MPV is basically Alphard
Yeah.
or the variant Velfire, right?
Bellfire, yeah.
The Kia is also very popular now. The Kia something, some crazy giant
Yeah,
seven-seater.
yes, the Kia one looks visibly cheaper. I mean, I'm not sure how much it actually costs, but it looks not the same, right?
That's okay. I think quality-wise, it's on par. That's why people are. That's why it's popular. I mean, yeah, maybe a little bit less than like your traditional Alphard, but it's like it's. I
Yeah.
think value for money is better.
So these few times I was in different cities in China. I basically see much more denser compared to Alphard on the
Oh,
road,
interesting. Okay.
which I think barely like a year ago was not the case. You still saw lots of Alphard.
Okay.
So that company was initially a JV between BYD and Mercedes, and somehow Mercedes decided to sell. I'm not sure whether it's majority or all of the shares to BYD, and then BYD took it very seriously.
I see.
So I mean, classic story of like real sons versus stepsons. I mean, how much effort you put in it.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Dave, close us out. What anything contrarian for the next year?
I don't know. Contrarian is difficult because I think it also is tied to which social circles you. No, it's true, right? Because I could say like you could make an argument that the contrarian take was that Donald Trump was going to lose the election, but obviously that depends on who you talk to.
Contrarian take the Donald Trump's going to lose. Yeah,
Yeah, right. Because like
yeah,
everyone in
yeah.
the media, liberal media, because it was like, oh, he's going to lose, and then he won the popular vote. So what is contrarians is
Hey,
so difficult because it's like
did
you
he
know
win
which
by? I don't think he won. I don't think he won by a lot though, right? The people were saying it was like a massive landslide, but it wasn't much actually. After the full count was in, or something like this.
it doesn't matter. He won the popular vote,
Yeah,
right? It's like
yeah.
my point stands, right? It's not. Um, okay, so if you're, I hate these because you're asking for like takes. I really don't like doing takes, but okay.
Yeah, give me a take.
I I think there is going to be a lot of pushback to mass PRC migration in the markets that they or in the countries that they're migrating to. You already see it. I see it both in real life and also about what people are saying online. But that really is only like Malaysia, Singapore, because I don't think they're really migrating anywhere else besides those two markets. But I think there's going to be a lot of like I don't want to call it like social upheaval because that's a bit extreme, but I think there's going to be a lot more
Xenophobia.
like rejection. Yeah, xenophobia. I think there's going to be a lot of that. There's going to be a lot of the rejection of these
Yeah.
PRCs coming and like you know
You
living in
guys
these
see
countries.
what happened in Vietnam last week, right? They basically banned Temu.
Oh
And then
yeah, yeah,
they asked him to suspend operations,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
and I
I
think
mean,
she, for whatever reason, became casualty as well because she was like doing that to Vietnam for years, no problem. But Temu came in within a month. They started selling like hundreds of thousands of parcels a day, like I mean,
yeah.
a
They
number of
they
million GMV a day, and that I think that changed the calculus of everyone saying that because previously when you do it at a small scale and for a particular category, people are fine with it, but now I mean,
you have to pay off the right people in the right order to do it big.
I think there's something bigger around it, right? So with Tim and everyone, so you basically the question is that I mean, those countries with GDP per capita lower than China's, would they still be able to develop manufacturing properly?
No, you have to
They don't have a
create
chance
some
anymore.
protection. You have to create some
Yeah.
protectionist policies. No, I absolutely agree. Like, yeah, if you're
Because
like,
by the pure economic terms, there's no way you can compete. I mean,
Yeah.
no way you can compete in a scale. I mean, people say, okay, the labor cost, the rent cost is lower, but if you look at everything else, right? I mean, the supply chain, the electricity cost, is the efficiency of logistics. It's hard for you to build something parallel to compete against what's happening in China.
yeah, but
As
that's
far
why
as
you need government intervention. This is the
yeah, unless
classic
the government
example.
comes in and intervene, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what happened.
this is
Yeah.
the classic like rationale for government intervention. I mean, it's the same, right? Like the U.S., TikTok lost their appeal, so theoretically they're going to be banned in like 3 weeks.
Like I think the day before the inauguration.
How
Literally
timely.
the day before the inauguration. Yeah,
Yeah.
literally the day before the inauguration.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Trump making
So
more stands.
so Trump said he was going to do something. I mean, do you think he'll do something about it?
Hard to say because it's
We'll
so
find out
it's
very soon, but yeah.
but no, but it's hard to say because again, like we go back to like the political capital question,
Mm,
right? And is
mm,
this really
mm.
worth like spending a lot of political capital on? Because it's you have to think about it. It's bipartisan, and it's all so you have the legislative branch. It was like the vote was not even close. It was like 360 or something
Yeah,
for banning it.
yeah.
Uh, the judicial system has made their ruling, right? So he's gonna. I mean, so if you think about it, like, yes, could he overturn it? Theoretically, he could, or he could just tell Justice Department not to enforce it. But then that's a pretty big investment of political capital for something that's like kind of marginally important, right? The only the reverse argument of that is the guy Jeffrey Yass, the owner
Yeah.
of Susquehanna Capital, who is the like I know the guys at
SIG, right?
SIG. Yeah, I know those guys. They
Yeah.
um they have been like they've been investors in TikTok since like day one, essentially, right? Early stage. So like the guy's like stake in TikTok is worth like something ridiculous, like $15 billion or something, right? And Jeffrey Yass was a big donor, not quite to the
Yes.
not
Yes.
to the Elon's level. He was a big
No,
donor to the Trump campaign, right? So
yes,
then
but
that's
Oh.
but if it's a single person with a 50 billion sort of stake in it, which is at risk, and that's something that you can easily sort of compensate the person elsewhere, right? So
correct. Yeah,
la-
correct.
Correct. Yeah.
last year, during the height of the first like Adani incident in India, that I think muddy water or whatever. So I can't remember. Hindenburg Research
Hindenburg research, yeah.
against Adani. I was talking to somebody, I mean, in the stock exchange in India, and he said, "Oh, look, whatever, right? So whatever that Adani losses, give him another port charter, you recover all the losses."
Mm.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. You're right. There's a lot of ways to compensate someone. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to get around this. So it's hard to say. I think chances are he won't do anything.
Yeah, well,
That's about right.
we'll probably find out in our next recording, so we can
Yeah,
talk
we'll
about
find
it.
out in about a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, guys. I think time for lunch. I think I hear Dave ramping up lunch in the background.
Yeah, my lunch is ready, so I have to go. My priorities are clear.
Yes. Okay. All right, guys. Well, have a good New Year's and good talk, and then we'll meet in the New Year.
Okay. See you guys soon.
Okay.
Happy New
Bye-bye.
Year. Bye.